The first time rejection hit me, it didn't knock. It kicked the door open and sat on my chest like it planned to stay. I was 15, standing in front of the mirror, wearing my only good shirt. The blue one. The one my mom ironed twice because she said, "First impressions matter, Sarah." I believed her. My hands were shaking, but I smiled at my reflection anyway. Today is different, I told myself. I was wrong. The hallway at school smelled like old books and cheap cologne. Lockers slammed. Laughter echoed. I walked toward the auditorium, heart beating so loud I thought people could hear it. This was audition day for the school talent showcase. The one thing I believed I was good at was storytelling. Talking. Making people laugh. Making them feel something. I stepped inside. On the stage sat 3 judges. Mr. Brown, Ms. Kelly, and Coach Harris, who looked like he didn't want to be there at all. Next, Ms. Kelly said without looking up, "That's me," I whispered. I walked to the center of the stage. The lights were hot. My mouth went dry. "Name?" Mr. Brown asked. "Sarah Miller," I said. "What will you be performing?" Ms. Kelly asked. "A story," I said. "A true one." Coach Harris finally looked at me. "You've got 2 minutes." I nodded and began. I talked about growing up quiet. About being the girl people forgot was in the room. About how words became my hiding place. About how stories saved me when real life felt too heavy. For a moment, I felt it. Silence. Attention. Then Coach Harris cleared his throat. "That's enough," he said. Ms. Kelly exchanged a look with Mr. Brown. "Sarah," she said slowly, "you're passionate. But this showcase is about entertainment. Big energy, singing, dancing, something exciting." My stomach dropped. Mr. Brown smiled the kind of smile adults use when they're about to disappoint you. "You're just not what we're looking for." The words landed hard. "Not what we're looking for." I nodded like it didn't hurt. "Thank you for your time," I said, because that's what polite girls say when their hearts are cracking. I walked off the stage with my head high. I didn't make it past the hallway before my eyes burned. That day didn't end there. At lunch, I saw Ryan sitting with his friends. Ryan Carter, the boy who laughed at my jokes in English class. The boy I practiced talking to in my head every night. I walked over. "Hey, Ryan," I said. He looked up. "Oh, hey, Sarah." My voice felt small. "I was wondering if you'd want to hang out sometime. Maybe after school." His friends went quiet. Ryan smiled, but it wasn't kind. "That's nice," he said, "but I don't see you like that." I laughed, trying to make it a joke. "Yeah, cool, me neither." He nodded, already turning away. 2 rejections in one day. By the time I got home, the wind outside was strong, bending the trees back and forth. I stood at the window and watched. "Even trees know when to bend," I muttered. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't talk. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every word. Not good enough. Not exciting enough. Not wanted. The next morning, my mom knocked on my door. "Sarah," she asked softly, "you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. She didn't believe me. Mothers never do. At school, the whispers started. Someone had heard about the audition. Someone had seen Ryan turn me down. Talent show reject, a boy muttered as I passed. I clenched my fists. That was when I learned something important. Rejection doesn't just hurt. It teaches. The question was, what was it trying to teach me? I didn't know yet. All I knew was that the wind was getting stronger. And if I didn't learn how to bend, I was going to break. The next rejection didn't come from people. It came from silence. The kind of silence that follows you down hallways. The kind that sits beside you in class. The kind that makes you feel invisible, even when you're surrounded. I started noticing it the week after the audition. Teachers still called my name, but their voices felt far away. Friends still joked, but their laughter didn't reach me. I laughed back anyway. I became good at pretending. At home, my mom tried harder than usual. "How was school?" she asked, placing a plate of food in front of me. "Fine," I said. She watched me pick at my food. "You've been saying fine a lot lately." I shrugged, because things are fine. She sighed. "Sarah, bending doesn't mean disappearing." I froze. "What?" I asked. She smiled softly. "I used to do the same thing when I was your age. I thought being quiet would keep me safe." I pushed my chair back. "I'm not hungry." I went to my room and closed the door, my heart pounding. That night, I opened my notebook, the one I hadn't touched since the audition. The first page stared back at me, blank and judgmental. My hand hovered over the pen. "What's the point?" I whispered. I closed it. The next day at school, Ms. Kelly stopped me after class. "Sarah," she said, "wait." I turned slowly. "I've been thinking about your audition," she said. Hope flickered in my chest. "Yes?" I asked. She folded her arms. "You're talented, but talent needs direction. You're too emotional. You let rejection get to you." The hope died. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "You'll understand when you're older." I walked out before she could see my face. At lunch, I sat alone. Ryan passed by my table. He hesitated, then stopped. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey," I replied. "Listen, about before." He scratched his head. "No hard feelings, right?" I looked up at him. "Do you usually ask that after hurting someone?" His face reddened. "I didn't mean it like that." "I know," I said. "You just meant it." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "See you around." I watched him walk away. The wind outside, the cafeteria windows, shook the trees violently. That evening, it rained hard. The kind of rain that sounds angry. I stood outside on the porch, letting the cold drops soak my hair, my clothes, my thoughts. Why does rejection hurt so much? I asked no one. The wind answered by pushing against me. I leaned forward instead of stepping back. That was the first time I noticed something strange. When I leaned into the wind, didn't knock me down. It just pushed. The next week, something unexpected happened. Mr. Brown called me into his office. I sat across from him, hands folded, prepared for another disappointment. "I reviewed your audition again," he said. My heart raced, and I asked. He cleared his throat. "You weren't right for the showcase, but that doesn't mean you weren't good." I blinked. "There's a student storytelling club," he continued. "Small, quiet, not many people care about it." That sounded familiar. "They meet after school on Fridays," he said. "You might fit there." Fit. The word felt strange. "I'll think about it," I said. He nodded. "Sometimes, Sarah, rejection is redirection." I didn't respond. Friday came faster than I expected. I stood outside the classroom door, my hand raised to knock. Laughter leaked out. I almost walked away. Then I remembered the trees. I knocked. Inside were 5 students, different ages, different faces, all nervous in their own way. A girl with curly hair smiled at me. "You knew?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm Sarah." "I'm Emily," she said. "Not the mean kind, the nice kind." I laughed despite myself. They handed me a chair. "Want to share something?" a boy named Lucas asked. My chest tightened. "No pressure," Emily said. "We bend here. We don't break." I took a deep breath, and I started talking about rejection, about pain, about how the wind never asks permission before it hits you. When I finished, no one spoke. Then they clapped. Not loud, not wild, real. Something warm spread through my chest. On my way home, the wind followed me again. This time, I didn't fight it. I bent, but deep down, a question remained. If bending kept me alive, what would finally make me strong? That answer was still coming. May, because bending keeps you alive. But bend too long, and you forget what standing feels like. The storytelling club became my quiet escape. Every Friday after school, we sat in a loose circle. No stage, no judges, just voices, just truth. Emily always brought snacks. Lucas always tapped his pen when he was nervous. A senior named Mark never spoke, but his eyes listened harder than anyone else. And me, I talked. I talked about pain. I talked about rejection. I talked about learning how to lean without falling. They listened. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. But outside that classroom, the wind kept changing. One Monday morning, our principal made an announcement. The annual winter assembly is coming up. His voice echoed through the speakers. We're opening the stage to student performances. My heart skipped. I felt it again. That pull, the same one that had dragged me onto the audition stage before tearing me down. At lunch, Lucas leaned toward me. "You should perform." I shook my head. "No." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because I already tried," I said. "And I already failed." Mark finally spoke. His voice was low. "Failure isn't rejection. Silence is." That hit me harder than anything Coach Harris ever said. That night, I stood in my room, staring at the notebook again. This time, I opened it. The words poured out fast. Too fast. My hand cramped, but I didn't stop. I wrote about the audition, about Ryan, about smiling when I wanted to scream, about bending so much I almost snapped. My mom knocked on my door. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded. She sat on the edge of my bed and watched me write. "You're different lately," she said. "Stronger, quieter." "I don't know which one I am," I admitted. She smiled sadly. "You don't have to choose yet." The week before the assembly, Miss Kelly stopped me again. "I heard you've been writing," she said. I stiffened. "People talk." "They do," she agreed. "Just be careful, Sarah. The stage can be cruel." I met her eyes. So can silence. She didn't reply. The night before the assembly, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside like it knew something big was coming. I sat on my bed, hugging my knees. "What if I break?" I whispered. The trees outside bent low, then rose again. I showed up to school the next day with my notebook in my bag. I hadn't signed up. Yet, backstage was chaos. Music, laughter, nerves. I stood near the curtain, unseen. Then I saw Ryan. He was tuning a guitar, surrounded by friends. He looked confident, untouched. Something inside me twisted. I turned away and almost crashed into Mr. Brown. "Sarah," he said, "didn't expect to see you here." "I'm just watching," I said. He studied me. "You're holding your notebook." I swallowed. "You don't have to perform," he said gently. "But if you walk away, make sure it's because you chose to, not because you're afraid." The words sat heavy in my chest. I looked at the stage. The lights, the open space, the wind inside me surged. I walked to the sign-up table. My hand shook as I wrote my name. 5 minutes later, a student volunteer whispered, "You're up next." My legs felt like water. The curtain opened. The lights hit me harder than last time. I stepped forward. I saw Miss Kelly in the crowd. My mom beside her, eyes wide. Ryan near the front, not smiling. I opened my notebook. My voice shook at first. "This story is about bending," I began. "And what happens when the wind doesn't stop?" The room went quiet. I kept going. Halfway through, I saw Ryan look down. Near the end, I felt it. The strength, not loud, not flashy, solid. When I finished, the silence lasted one long second. Then applause, real applause. My chest burned, but as I stepped off the stage, my hands trembling, a thought cut through the noise. Applause fades, and the wind always comes back. I didn't know it yet, but the hardest test wasn't the stage. It was what came after. The wind came back the very next morning. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet. That scared me more than the applause ever did. At school, people smiled at me in the hallways. Some nodded, some whispered. A few even clapped softly when I passed. I felt taller for a moment, lighter. Then the feeling faded, because applause doesn't heal pain. It only pauses it. Ryan stopped me by the lockers after third period. "You were amazing," he said. "Thank you," I replied. He hesitated. "I didn't know you felt all that." I met his eyes. Most people don't. He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." I believed him, but forgiveness didn't magically erase the hurt. It didn't rewind time or soften every memory. It just loosened the tight knot in my chest. That was enough. Ms. Kelly called me into her classroom after school. "You proved me wrong," she said. I smiled. "I didn't do it to prove anything." She studied me for a long moment. "That's how I know you meant it." At home, my mom hugged me tighter than usual. "I saw you stand," she whispered. I closed my eyes. "I still bend." She smiled against my hair. "We all do. The trick is knowing when to do each." That night, I sat by my window again. The wind moved through the trees like before. Strong, unpredictable, unapologetic. But the trees were still there. I finally understood. Bending wasn't weakness. It was survival. Standing wasn't stubbornness. It was choice. Rejection didn't destroy me. It shaped me. It pushed me to places applause never could. It taught me to listen, to feel, to grow roots instead of walls. It hurt, but it didn't win. I picked up my notebook and wrote one last line before closing it. The wind didn't break me. It taught me how to move. I didn't know what the future held. More stages, more silence, more rejection. But this time, I wasn't afraid, because no matter how hard the wind blew, I knew who I was when it passed.